You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I am Kate Magdziuk. You can follow me on Twitter at FFBallBlast. And of course, as always, I am joined by Marcus Mosher. You could follow him on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Give the show a follow at Locked On Dynasty. And of course, subscribe wherever you're listening. Spotify, you can leave reviews on Spotify now. So go leave your reviews. Make us happy. Make us super happy. Please tell two friends to tell two friends. It's Dynasty off season, and we're going to have a good time helping you get these teams closer to a championship in the coming season. Marcus, we had a wild card weekend.
We did. Both of our teams lost.
Yeah.
And it was not fun for either of us watching our games. And now we get to look forward to the really, really, really long off season. But today we're going to do our team reviews, starting with the Lions and Jaguars. But before we do that, Kate, any big thoughts from Wild Card Weekend?
I have to say, I don't think Roger Goodell was probably pleased about the way most of these games rolled out.
No.
It was a very disappointing start to Wild Card Weekend after just having that like big bang of a finish to Week 18. Not a ton of excitement, but I do think there were some interesting things we learned. I mean, Joe Burrow. Gonna call him clutch as ever. Josh Allen, huge stud muffin.
Is Josh Allen the QB1 going forward?
So here's the thing. You have Josh Allen, who absolutely dominated, but then you have Patrick Mahomes, who came out and absolutely lit things up. 404 yards, 5 passing touchdowns. I mean, the two of them, I don't know how we decide who is the QB1.
I would go Mahomes just because a little bit safer, I think. But those are absolutely 1 and 2, and I think there's probably a big gap between the next guy, right?
Yeah, I think there's a huge tier break. I'm gonna go ahead and say that I think this might be controversial. I feel like I want to put Josh Allen as that 1A, and maybe Mahomes is the 1B. I do think. I mean, overall, Patrick Mahomes does feel like the safer. I feel safer about his floor as a passer, but Josh Allen's rushing ability just takes it to a whole nother level. And we actually saw them, devote some time to the run. Devin Singletary had 16 carries in this contest, but Josh Allen still managed 66 rushing yards. I feel like that alone is enough to put him in contention for QB1, though Patrick Mahomes is like QB 1.25.
I agree. It's fun having Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in the same conference. Hopefully for the next decade is going to be a lot of fun.
Playing guys, we get these two guys head to head in the divisional round. I mean, it makes me sad because one of these teams isn't going to make it further. And I feel like we deserve both of these teams to make it as far as possible. But how fun is that going to be? And Dynasty managers on Twitter, I can't wait to see the back and forth.
Let's say with the quarterbacks. One quarterback that I was a little bit disappointed with was Jalen Hurts. And I mean, obviously this is his first playoff game and they weren't expected to beat the Buccaneers, but this was a team that couldn't move the ball at all for 3 quarters. And you just wonder, like, is this the type of game that makes Philadelphia, the front office, think, you know what, we've got to go out and get a better quarterback to help us compete against Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and those guys in the NFC. I don't think it's going to happen necessarily this year, but I just wonder how much longer is Hurts going to be the starter in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think it definitely was a little bit jarring, especially for a team like Philadelphia, who saw backup Nick Foles come in and take you to a Super Bowl. Obviously, that wasn't under Nick Sirianni's reign, but it's got to be in the back of your mind, and seeing your young quarterback in these big moments. I mean, really, none of these young quarterbacks, like I'll say, Joe Burrow came up, incredibly, but outside of Joe Burrow, I'd argue that none of these young quarterbacks did overly well outside of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Yep.
But again, plenty of time to grow. And I feel like my litmus test for these quarterbacks and like how do I feel about them long term is like, would I want them to quarterback my team? And I still think I'd be interested in having Jalen Hurts as the quarterback. Although anything feels like an upgrade at this point from Ben Roethlisberger. I think all of the dynasty stock of literally every single player on their roster just shot to the moon last night as soon as Ben Roethlisberger stepped off the field. But I still think Jalen Hurts has a bright future, but definitely not where you want him to be as he's quarterbacking your team in a wild card playoff game.
And the last guy that I want to mention, just because this is a blast from the past, Jerick McKinnon, Kate, 12 carries for 61 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, 6 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown. Remember like 3 years ago when we got really excited about him signing a huge contract with the 49ers and what he was going to do in Kyle Shanahan's offense? It's only taken him till whatever age season this is now for him to break out. But he's 29. He'll be 30 this offseason. But Jerick McKinnon looked like the fastest player on the field last night, and that's saying something.
Cordero Patterson breakout 2.0. Yeah, gotta love it.
I think what it says more about is it's probably like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just never going to be the guy, right? Like he'll be a part of this backfield, but I've got a hard time believing that they're ever going to give him 20 touches a game, right? They have too many other talented weapons.
They have too many other talented weapons, but I think, I think the backfield would really have to clear out in terms of their depth chart for him to really become any sort of workhorse. And at this point, you have to wonder, can he handle a workhorse type load? I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's extremely talented, but just hasn't quite found that vision. I think he did take a step forward this year. In terms of his development, but just not coming out blazing out of the gate. One other player that I want to talk about. Should we take a break first and then?
No, let's go ahead. We can do it. We'll do it. Let's do it.
Okay. I want to talk about Juju Smith-Schuster, who was like the biggest surprise of Wild Card Weekend. Came out and decided to play, which in the post-game presser said that his shoulder surgery was a 6-month recovery timetable. And he did it in 3 months. He said, I want to return for my team. I'm just so curious. I think that there's no player that's kind of harder to gauge right now than Juju Smith-Schuster in terms of his dynasty value. Didn't exceed 52 receiving yards so far this season. But I mean, again, 2018, his second season in the NFL, 1,400 receiving yards, and has been playing with terrible quarterbacks, has been not healthy. I feel like we're just kind of discounting this guy because of a lot of circumstances floating around. He just turned 25, like last month. Are we really that ready just to give up on Juju Smith-Schuster after a couple of injured seasons where he saw targets, 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage?
Do you know when his last 100-yard game was?
I don't.
It was October 28th, 2019.
I believe it.
This one's really hard because I agree with you. Like his early career production is insane. I think it would be best for everybody if he probably leaves Pittsburgh. Go to an established quarterback, because I'm not sure what Pittsburgh's going to do next year. I think it's going to be a combination of a draft pick and Mason Rudolph. Go somewhere with a team that already has a quarterback. Like go to the Chargers. Go play with Justin Herbert, or go play with the Chiefs like you had an offer to do last year. Something like that. Get his dynasty stock back, into a playable spot on our teams, because over the last couple of years, you've not felt good about playing Juju Smith-Schuster at all.
I mean, it's not so much about playing him because right now, I mean, I think all of us knew that was out of the question. You cannot play Juju Smith-Schuster right now. He hasn't done enough, but he was literally the wide receiver one after his 1,400 yard season. So I just think like this is a great time to buy because I think we know the talent's there, but the circumstances and situation has not been. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, what would you I can't imagine what he's currently going for on the market. And
third round pick.
Yeah, I'd send that 40 times out of 40 times. Just looking at stuff like average depth of target. I still think he's been hugely critical to the team in like pretty much every situation. Give me all the Juju.
Okay. We'll see. He's going to be a fun player to follow this offseason. We'll see where he lands. Let's take a quick break to tell you guys about Built Bar. It's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar, or maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and most Built Bars contain only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your next order at built.com. All right, Kate, let's get to our season review for some of these teams. We're going to look today at the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions. Let's start with the Lions, and I've got 3 questions for you on both of these teams. And let's start with who's the most valuable dynasty asset for the Lions? I think I know this answer, but what do you got?
I'm going to give you a little bit of a hot take here and go with Deandre Swift.
No, okay.
I know it's a very bold take. But he's somebody we've talked a lot about on this podcast because, obviously very versatile as a receiver, and he's shown us that versatility time and time again. But I mean, in terms of the rushing production hasn't been up there, but it hasn't necessarily had all the right circumstances to produce as a rusher. My question for you, obviously the receiving ability is what gets his ceiling as high as you want it. Does he continue to see this many targets in this offense once they have a more bolsterous receiving core?
Yeah, I think he does because he's just a really talented guy out of the backfield catching the ball. So I think he's going to get the work, and I think he's going to be a stud for the next several years for us. Kate, currently on Dynasty League Football, his ADP is 2 at running back. It's Jonathan Taylor 1, DeAndre Swift at 2, Javonte Williams at 3, Christian McCaffrey at 4, Najee Harris at 5. I gotta admit, it's a little surprising to see that big of a gap between Swift and Najee. What do you think?
I think I get it. I think that's kind of the circumstance right now with the question marks surrounding the quarterback position in Pittsburgh. I think the notion of Mason Rudolph is pushing down that dynasty value of Najee Harris a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Even a guy like Elijah Mitchell, a rookie who just has come out and I think looked to be making better decisions. Like, is Najee, the Alabama star, obviously still in there? Yes. We see that, in terms of his big playmaking ability, but not as much in the consistency as we might have wanted to see this year. So I totally get that. Let's talk about Jared Goff because he's in there. He's going to be with the Lions at least another season. Carries $30.5 million in dead cap. So there's no way he's going anywhere this year. How do you feel about any of these receiving options with Jared Goff as quarterback moving forward indefinitely? There is an out in 2023 potentially.
Yeah, I don't hate it as much as I did earlier in the year. I actually thought Goff played well at spots, right? Like when the protection held up and he had his weapons available. I'm not gonna say he was good, but he was fine. Like he's good enough to get the ball to our guys. it's just not a big concern to me, really, at all.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. And you know what? Even if this is not a Sean McVay led offense, we still see that Jared Goff can deliver a ball. He's not totally incompetent there.
Mhm.
And I think, especially considering the pieces on the depth chart that he was working with, I actually think Jared Goff was pretty decent. And I hope we see them continue to build, because even if the win-loss columns didn't reflect it, this team was a fighting
Competitive.
team.
Yeah,
It,
they were
it was a
competitive.
competitive team, and they did that without a lot of big playmakers. I mean, Khalif Raymond,
Mhm.
um, but Amon-Ra St.
Amon-Ra St.
Brown,
Brown.
I'm
Yeah.
Josh Reynolds. Like, that was what they were dealing with, and I think for him to have had the season he did with that cast and
Yeah.
crew, pretty good.
All right, next one. Most disappointing player from the Lions in 2021.
Oh,
I mean, I've got the answer if you want it.
yeah,
It's TJ. It's got to be TJ Hawkinson, right?
yeah, it is. I just didn't. Yeah.
TJ
I'm
Hawkinson.
I'm really bummed about this one, because TJ Hawkinson, I was a very, very firm
Yeah.
believer. And this was definitely a disappointing season. Only 583 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. Just not what we were hoping for.
No, I mean, and what's more concerning is he had a 100-yard game in the first game of his career as a rookie. He has not gone over 100 yards in any of his other 39 games in his career. As a rookie, he averaged 11 and a half yards per reception, 2020 down to 10.8. This year, 9.6. Like, that's just trending in the wrong direction. And while he's still really young, he's only 24, will turn 25 this offseason. We were hoping, and a lot of people were drafting him like he's a top 3 dynasty asset at the tight end position just a year ago. So you have to wonder, like, are we ever going to see him become a top 5 dynasty tight end? I kind of don't think so, Kate.
The good thing for TJ Hawkinson is that the bar is extremely low to make it into the top 5. But I mean, with the way Mark Andrews played this year, George Kittle, though he's been disappointing down the stretch, I'm not giving up on TJ Hawkinson just yet. Still a very young player, still just 24 years old. He's got all of the athleticism that I want in a studly tight end, but definitely a guy who lost some value. And
really
if
quickly,
you're
really on Dynasty League football, he is currently tight end 4. These are the tight ends behind him. You tell me how many you take. George Kittle.
George Kittle is behind.
Yeah. Yep.
Give me George Kittle.
Darren Waller.
Darren Waller.
Dallas Goedert.
Ooh, yeah, Dallas Goedert. Yeah.
Noah Fant. That's where it gets tricky.
Ugh. Yeah. I'll cut things at Dallas Goedert.
Yeah,
but
and then Pat Freiermuth is 9. So,
oof, that
yeah,
doesn't feel great. Doesn't feel great.
All right, Dynasty buy from this team. Last one. Anybody you're going out and trying to buy this offseason?
No. I want to say Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, I'm so impressed with what he did down the stretch here. I mean, not a guy that I really liked coming out of school. I just wasn't really convinced that he had the hands to really secure a role, especially without a ton of playmakers around him. But was absolutely clutch during the second half of the season. If you had the guts to roll him out in your dynasty lineups, he probably won you some games down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of crazy to say, but only 22 years old. My concern with Amon-Ra St. Brown is once he did start seeing that target share, which the switch kind of flipped, like week 13 on, didn't see fewer than 10 targets, had a touchdown in 5 out of his last 6 games of the season. Like, I don't know what happened I can't explain it, but I'd say buy, but I'm just wondering if with the finish he had to the season, is his price going to be too high?
Yeah, we'll see. Let's check back in that in a couple months and see where it's at, because I got a feeling that you're probably going to be right there. All right, one more quick break to tell you guys about Bet Online. Bet Online would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. Bet Online remains the #1 spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. It's a new year and a new updated desktop and mobile website. To sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit, all you have to do is use promo code LOCKEDON to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Kate, let's finish with the Jacksonville Jaguars, the team that will own the #1 pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. This is a tricky one. Most valuable dynasty asset going forward. And I know it's not Laquan Treadwell, but it should be.
I'm actually gonna roll with Travis Etienne here. I think Mr. Forgotten. He's just the injury and being outside of this picture. The just the bad vibes around this team in general. Definitely going to, I think, force the ceiling down on Travis Etienne a bit. But I think we already saw from the team, even if it was under bad coaching, a willingness to stray from James Robinson, which I don't think was the right move. But I think they know that they need to get some utilization out of their first round pick. And you know what? I think maybe pair him with Trevor Lawrence, and maybe we'll get a little bit of that college rapport that we saw was so valuable out of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase this year. I think you need something to make Trevor Lawrence a bit more comfortable. I think Travis Etienne is the perfect guy to do that. And I mean, the options are there, or the opportunities are there for him to really flourish as a wide receiver. Leviska Chanel didn't come to fruition. I just think there are so many opportunities here within this offense. With the James Robinson injury, there's just so many different moving parts. I think he's the biggest beneficiary out of them all.
I think I agree with you, but there's somebody else I want to talk about, but we'll save him for a little bit. Next one, most disappointing player. Kid, I kind of feel like this one has to be Leviska Chanel, right? He played 16 games this season, 619 yards, no touchdowns. I thought when they drafted him, he was basically going to be like the Deebo Samuel, right? He's going to see 5 or 6 touches a game, as in the backfield. You're going to run some screens. He had 11 carries all season long. 11. He actually had a worse season this year than he did last year. And he played fewer games last year. I don't understand it. I don't know what happened to Chanel.
I think definitely one of the things that, we saw is that this is a team that needs to know how to utilize this weapon correctly. It's kind of like, sending a amateur chef into a kitchen full of like the biggest chefing toys. Shout out. I'm just watching that Next Level Chef, Chef Gordon Ramsay's latest show. So cooking's on my mind. But when I'm watching these chefs in like this premium kitchen, I'm like, I wouldn't know what to do with all these tools. I kind of feel like that's the Jacksonville Jaguars with Leviska Chanel. Is he a talented player? Absolutely. But, if you're not generating touches for him, just in every way possible, a la Deebo Samuel, I think the ceiling there is quite low for him just in fantasy.
Yeah.
As a receiver, he's just not used, far enough down the field to make him a viable asset on a week-to-week basis.
And he's not consistent at all. Like there was times where he was targeted down the field and drop passes, would run the wrong routes, would literally run into his other receivers. Like, man, this was frustrating because he's clearly talented. I don't think it's going to happen in Jacksonville. And the last one, a dynasty bye. And I'll go first if you don't mind, Kate. For me, it's still Trevor Lawrence. He is currently quarterback 8 right now in Dynasty League football. And actually watching the Bills game this weekend made me kind of want to go trade for Trevor Lawrence, because we saw Josh Allen as a rookie really struggle. Like the accuracy was all over the place. He was wild with the football. And then after a couple of years, he kind of settled down. And now look, we talked about it at the top of the show as maybe QB1 in Dynasty, right? I think Trevor Lawrence is still incredibly talented. You saw in that final game of the season against the Colts, like it was so clear he was the better quarterback on the field. I just think with having the number 1 pick this year, with the new coaching staff coming in, maybe they can find an adult that can actually coach this team and be somewhat responsible.
I love that you use the word adult. And
it doesn't even have to be a great coach, just somebody who is a functional human, adult. Right? I think Lawrence is going to have a much better year too. That's all.
I'm kind of maybe I'm a little bit on the other side, similar to Amon-Ra St. Brown when I said I'm not sure if he's a buy. If Trevor Lawrence is already sitting at quarterback 8 after the season that he had, completed just 59% of passes, 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, he just about had the most disastrous rookie season that I think any of us could have ever projected in our wildest dreams. But the thing that is concerning for me, not so much the performance. I know the talent on the field and his receiving core wasn't always there, but the concern for me comes just at how high we had put sort of his baseline and how far away from his projected baseline he really was. Because I think, relatively speaking, this is a player that we thought had a very safe floor. And it turns out, I think the floor is like in the basement, or Trevor Lawrence has cracked the foundation of the house and is buried under it in terms of his floor, because this was a disaster.
I will say I wouldn't necessarily just go by like a Dynasty League ranking for his value right now, because I know a lot of owners out there that are getting a little impatient. And I saw like Russell Wilson traded for him straight up. Zach Wilson in a 2nd-round pick traded for Trevor Lawrence straight up. So the guy that drafted Trevor Lawrence this year, he might be a little bit more, able to trade him away. Maybe he wants better value or she wants better value. We'll see. I think Lawrence is somebody who could have a big jump in year 2.
All right.
We'll see. All right. That is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Matt and Ryan will be back on Tuesday to preview the Texans and the Jets going into the 2022 season. We'll be back on Friday as we preview the divisional round of the playoffs. We'll have 2 more teams to talk about. Enjoy the Monday Night Football game tonight. It sounds weird. We get a Monday Night Football playoff game between the Rams and the Cardinals. Should be a lot of fun.